Hey everyone, I'm your favorite host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Today we have the man you all have been looking forward to all week, and we are going to talk about a unique business model. Actually, during the pandemic, you would not expect that you can actually start your own paternity business. Yes! And I have the man, the perfect, the doctor, the mad scientist himself coming to the stage to help educate us and show us how you can do this too. So stay tuned, stay with us. Here we go. Hi everyone, I'm your host Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and I have coming to the stage, Mr. Royal Banks. This man is the founder and CEO of Assurance DNA, a nationwide paternity testing service based in El Paso, Texas. This man actually founded and grounded this industry, and this is unknown, unheard of, and he is here to actually show us and test us on how we can actually get started and partner with him and lock arms and get started in our own paternity testing business today. He also founded Paternity University, the world's first paternity testing course, as well as some other entrepreneurial ventures. This man is non-stop, and he's a force to be reckoned with. Companies like Gray Helix, another paternity testing CRM SaaS business. And if you watch previous episodes on the show, you know what SaaS is. And if you don't, go check us out. He's also coming here to the stage. He's also a military officer, so we want to thank him for his dedicated service to our country. So help me welcome, without further ado, Mr. Royal Banks.
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? I love that intro. That is like, I love it. I've seen all your other intros before, and I'm like, man, just to be on this stage as well, to have that intro is very dope.
It's dope to have you, sir. You did all the work, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you for checking us out. But we appreciate you making time to give back today, because what you do is unique, and unique is what this show is all about. I'm happy to have you here, sir. But first, I got to dive in, sir. You could do anything. I have to ask the first and obvious question. How did you get involved in the paternity testing business? How did you discover this?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom is actually based in Atlanta, and she owns her own paternity testing service. She's been doing it for 20 years, been doing it since 2002 or so. So I've seen her build her own paternity testing business. She got into it because her brother got into a situation, a paternity testing situation that he had to solve. And so she realized, like, this could be a business. And she started it back in 2002, and she's been doing it for 20 years. So I've seen her do everything, run it on her own. And so 2020, my wife and I were looking to buy a mobile home out in Fort Lee, Virginia. That's where I was stationed at during that time. And I already owned one in Fayetteville, Fort Bragg. That's where I was stationed at prior. And we had some money set aside. And people were asking just too much money for a mobile home, like in a park. Like a mobile home in a park usually goes for, I don't know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 maybe. People were asking like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for a mobile home. We were going to try to buy it and flip it or rent it out or something like that. And I just got frustrated after a while, especially since the DMV was closed. I couldn't do anything. COVID was going on. And I was just like, you know what? Let's just pivot to something else. And I brought it to my wife, and I was like, how about we start a paternity testing business just like my mom? And she said, yeah, absolutely. I brought it up to you a couple of years ago, and you didn't really want to do it. And I'm like, I don't think I was ready, but now I am. So December 2020, we started Assurance DNA, and it's been on ever since.
Love it. That's huge, and that's major. And so mom is the headway into this, and you saw how it worked, how it functioned. Did mom take you in the business with her? Like, did she show you the ropes? Did you go to the office on day trips and check her out and see how it goes down in there?
Yeah, sort of kind of like she wanted to have all of her kids involved in a way, but like we were all kind of sort of mildly uninterested. I got more interested after I graduated college. And so I was just sitting around, summer 2013 after I graduated college. I'm just sitting around. And I'm like, let me help her out. So I actually helped her come more into the digital age. Like she was doing, yellow pages, white pages, going on the radio stations and talking about it. I set up her website, her Google My Business. I even started running ads and stuff like that for her. So I was more so doing like marketing stuff, that back end stuff. And kind of just, when she had an office, I would go to that office and just sit there and run errands for her or look at how clients would come in and she would help them out, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then since then, honestly, I've been helping her on and off with either ideas like, hey, mom, try this sales idea, try this sales script or whatever. And since then, it's been working out well for her.
Makes sense. So your mom and you got involved because you wanted to help a family member. Are you able to go into detail on how is there a issue in the paternity business that you and your mom and your family are able to fill? Is there a lot of erroneous paternity tests out there? Is that what's going on? How did you guys help and change the dynamic there?
Sure. For him, it was more so of a situation of a child that he thought was his that was not. And so he had to get a paternity test. And I think at the time, it had to be in the late 90s, maybe late 90s or early 2000s. And it's just the way that he went about getting the paternity test was a little off. Not that it was erroneous results, but it's just like the customer service portion of it. And so that inspired my mom to do her own thing, start her own thing, and be able to build her own business and give the better customer service that she would have loved her brother to get.
Makes sense. Shout out to mom. Shout out to mom. Great job, mom. This is huge. So I want to ask the hard question. How much does it cost to get started? Is this another 70,000 that I need to set to the side? Is some, is it 100,000? Is it a franchise type thing?
No.
How is this set up?
Yeah, no, it costs less than $500 to actually start and get going. Now, your ongoing cost obviously will be marketing, creating ads and stuff like that. But no, you don't need tens of thousands of dollars. You don't need to get a building. You don't need to buy a laboratory. I can go into exactly how all that works, how the entire ecosystem works. But essentially, you are a middleman consultant or middlewoman consultant. So it costs less than $500. Essentially, incorporating your business, getting your website, setting up, an open phone or a Google Voice or a Grasshopper or getting a separate business phone if you want to do that, if you choose to do that. And that's really about it. Partnering with the laboratory, that doesn't cost any money. So what you'll do is you're a middleman. You are not the DNA testing laboratory itself. Okay. There are about 20 AABB, American Association of Blood Banks, accredited DNA relationship testing laboratories across the world, most of them based in the United States. The most famous one being DNA Diagnostic Center. So if you ever watch Maury or Paternity Court, that's the lab that provides those results. You would essentially partner or become a distributor or reseller of their services. You would contact them and say, hey, I want to do this. And they would give you a contract. There's another lab as well, a couple other labs. They would either give you a contract or non-contract agreement. You agree to resell their services. Essentially, you say on your website, you are not an actual laboratory. You are simply a consultant or a middleman, essentially, of the services, and you go from there. And it doesn't cost you. They don't charge you up front to send you kits. The actual DNA testing kits. They don't charge you up front. They send you the kits. You get them, and then you start marketing your services, and you just build from there. That's it.
So thank you for breaking that down. That makes a lot of sense, because when you said $500, I was like, cap, no way, no. I couldn't believe it. But that makes sense. You're the middleman. You're the marketer. You're the face almost of that business going forward. So how do people find you? Do they find your website, or do you go door to door, business to business?
Yeah, but honestly, it's Google Ads, Google. Like, it's that simple. Like, people search for paternity testing. If they see that your website or your Google My Business profile is at the top with multiple reviews, and they call you and you answer the phone, 50% of the time you're going to get their business, simply because you were there when they were looking for you and you answered the phone. That's Google. That's it.
Wow. How quick is the turnaround? So from the time, so can you walk us through that process? From the time someone reaches out to you, from
Sure.
the time the kit is sent to you and then you deliver it, or is it
Okay.
sent directly to customers? Is that how it works? Can you talk
Yeah.
about that
So
funnel a little bit?
sure. From the time that you ask the laboratory, like, hey, I'm starting a paternity testing service in Austin, Texas, and this is what I want to do, probably about a week, 2-ish weeks or so, depending on how busy they are. Some of these labs are extremely busy. They process 800, 900, 1,000 tests a day from all over the world, right? Yeah. So so they'll send you the kits. You know, it might take a couple of weeks or so, but you'll get them. And then let's just say all your stuff set up, your Google My Business profile set up, your website set up, and you get your first call, right? And the person wants to actually uh, essentially get your service. All right. So the time frame, it depends. If they want a court admissible paternity test, meaning they want this paternity test for child custody reasons, birth certificate, inheritance, social security, whatever. All right. That's a court admissible test. That means you don't send the kid out to them. That means the test starts with you, it ends with the lab. So they come into your office or you meet them mobily or however, you swab them, you do the paperwork, you send it in. From the time that you send it in, let's say you send it in on a Monday, it arrives to the lab by Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. More than likely by Friday, they will receive their results from you. The lab will release the results to you in either a portal or email, and then you will release the results to the client. So Monday to Friday, that's the time frame it takes usually for a regular standard buccal swab, mouth swab paternity test. Now, if it's something like a prenatal paternity test, meaning the woman is pregnant and she's trying to figure out who the father is, that takes about 7 to 21 business days, depending on what lab you use. So that's the flash to bang time frame of what it takes.
I appreciate that. That's what's needed. So thank you for breaking that down. This is huge. So where is the money actually made? Where does the compensation come in for you as a representative versus the lab, or is that a separate cost to you?
Yeah, no, good. The money is made on the front end. So they contact you, they don't know, they don't really know about labs like that. They usually don't research the labs directly. They have no idea. And the labs don't have the bandwidth to really test every single person in the United States. So they reach you, they call you. And guess what? You answer all their questions. You do your sales spiel, help them out, listen to them, etc. And you say, how would you like to book? What would you like? And they say, I want this, I want that. You either take their payment over the phone or send them an invoice before you leave the house or outsource anything. I get my payment up front. That's me, and I teach my students the same way. Don't go anywhere. Don't go to the office. Don't swab nobody until you get your payment first. So you make your money up front, whether it's $300, $1,700, whatever it is. You make your money up front, okay? And then when you swab them and you send the samples off to the laboratory receives them and says, got it, cool, great. All right, now we're going to charge you our fee, okay? Because the lab charges you as a distributor a fee to process the samples, whether it's $130 for a standard court admissible paternity test, whether it's $90 for an informational, non-legal, personal peace of mind test, or whether it's $1,200 for a prenatal paternity test, and you charge the client $1,800. So that's how you make your money. You make your money up front, and then the lab charges you on the back end once they receive your samples and to release the results.
So that's why it's important to collect the money up front, because that invoice from that lab, if you send that in prior to collecting payment, you're getting an invoice from that lab.
Yeah, and it's ways you can't, like, for example, I charge $1,695 for a prenatal paternity test with results in 7 business days. What I had to learn, what I do is I give them the option to either pay that all up front, or I say you could put down 50% now to get everything started, and then 50% later. What I do is I'll contact the laboratory and say, hey, this person did a payment plan with me, so hold off on sending me an invoice for collecting payment from me until they pay me. And they say, okay, cool, got it.
So they'll actually hold the results for you, or you won't even submit at all?
They'll hold. I will still submit, and they will start testing. They will hold the results until that final payment is made. So the client pays me, I pay the lab, everybody's good to go. Then they release the results the same business day or the next business day and the client's happy.
Woo, spilling the tea. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is so necessary. We have to go to a quick commercial break. Speaking of invoices, we got to pay our sponsors. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you're looking for a reliable professional trucking and logistics service, you've come to the right place. Musa Trucking is a veteran-owned and operated premier transportation provider that can help with all of your trucking and logistics needs. Musa is revolutionizing the trucking industry through strategic partnerships, the development of core personnel, and the use of cutting-edge technology. Our inventory system ensures that cargo ends up divided into the right trucks and reaching the correct destination. Our drivers are dedicated to transporting goods efficiently and safely. Contact us today to get started by visiting the website on the screen or by calling 757-756-5246.
We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast show. And if you missed any of what this powerhouse speaker has had to say, he's talking about starting your own paternity testing business. And you can get started as little as $500. That's it. That's it. That's the cost. And if you missed any of how he broke that down, go back, scroll back, and check him out. He is now going to be on iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Ghana Market, and all other places, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts today. Sir, tell us, how did you come up with the name Assurance of your company, of your website?
Man, you're like the first person to ever ask that. I love that. Yeah, it's when it comes to just branding, you want to be able, you're very client facing. So you essentially want to reassure them or assure them that they're going to get the accurate results in a timely fashion to get the answers they need, so it is assurance. I think I thought of multiple different things. Like, I don't know, I thought of a bunch of different things and I just thought assurance. I think it was reassurance first. And I was like, no, because it's the first time they're getting a paternity test usually. So assurance DNA. And I was like, that rolls off the tongue very well. So yeah, that's what I chose it.
It does. TheTruth.com also goes.
This
is where you can trust. Nikki Brown says great information. Yes, this is super dope information. Perfect. So I gotta dive in. So how does one get started in the business? Is there a way to check out the reviews of different labs to see how busy they are or how accurate they are? Because I think accuracy is something major in this business. You can't be delivering bad results because you're ultimately affecting lives. How can you figure out whether a lab puts out good results or not?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So in the course I teach, essentially, you want to really only go with the AABB, or American Association of Blood Banks Accredited Laboratories. Those are the ones that provide. Those are the ones that are certified by the AABB, and they go through a rigorous process multiple times a year to determine how they're essentially releasing their results, how they processing test their entire. I mean, they Lean Six Sigma the crap out of their entire process. Okay, so that is how you choose. You look at that list, and like I said, DNA Diagnostics. I mean, they're I'm not a sponsor of them whatsoever or anything of that nature, and they don't pay me any money. Okay, but they're essentially the largest relationship testing laboratory pretty much in the world. So like they have that brand recognition already. And they're pretty great. And there's another laboratory, Universal Forensics Corporation. They're a little bit smaller, they're more boutique, but they get those answers fast and they're accredited as well. So that's kind of how you find those places and look for those places. You want to check and see if they're accredited, because that is also how they offer the court admissible paternity testing as well.
That's fair. I love that. What is the craziest, and this is me just being nosy, so forgive me, what is the craziest or saddest paternity testing story that you've experienced in this line of work?
Well, the craziest one was one that I did last week. I completed it last week, and it was a woman. I'm not going to give states, obviously, names, time zones, locations, or anything like that. But basically, a woman was married. They're married. They're still married. I think they're just separated, but they're married. And none of the kids were the husbands. None. They were actually like the boyfriends, which was crazy because those kids are like ranging from young to early tween time frame, you know, and just having to give that guy those results. You know, he obviously was not. I think he had doubts about two of them, but the third one, I think that's the one that, you know, kind of took him over. I had one where my first ever like in-person legal court admissible paternity test I did, which is, that story is funny in itself. But woman calls me. She says, hey, I'm gonna let you know, I'm gonna be straight up. I don't think this is my husband's child. All right, cool. Fair enough. I feel bad. I feel horrible, but I need to find these answers. Cool. I go, I test all of them. I test the mother, the child, and the alleged father. I give the results come. The child is not the husband's. It's actually her ex-lover's. And I send her the results, and she, you know, goes through like essentially the 5 stages of grief, essentially. She texts me, calls me. She's like, hey, are these real? I'm like, yeah, they're real results, you know? Oh, okay. All right, thank you. And then she texts me the next day. I just have a question. Can alcohol affect how the way the paternity test comes out? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you know, he drinks alcohol from time to time. Can that affect essentially his DNA? I was like, can it affect his DNA? Like his genetic makeup? No, it can't. You know? She's like, oh, okay. I'm just asking because I was talking to and you know, and then she calls back the next day. Yeah, he saw the results and he kind of went back into a spiral, you know, drinking alcohol and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm sorry, man, you know, but those are the answers. And then she finally accepted, like the 4th day, she finally accepted and was like, all right, I got it. Fair enough. Cool. These are the results. We're going to move forward. I haven't heard from them since, but yeah, that was like one of my first in-person legal paternity tests right there.
That hurts. That hurts.
Yeah.
I can imagine that from doing that can really, sometimes it can bring people closer in the process, but sometimes it can separate people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in my mom. Look, if I ever have my mom do a media run, right, and on these podcasts, she literally has 20-something years of stories. Like the whole stuff with, I told my mom, I was like, hey, I had this test, yada, yada, yada. All 3 kids went to husband. She was like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I dealt with that like 20 years ago. Yep. And the dude ended up plastering signs all over the place where she worked saying that, you know, these are none of these are my kids. I was like, what? I was like, yeah. So, oh yeah. My mom has seen everything. She's seen everything under the sun when it comes to this. So yeah.
So there's not a story that you could ever break to her to say, hey, mom, have you seen this before? Oh yeah, back oh my god.
Back in 2003, yeah, yeah, she's seen it all, man. She's seen everything. I mean, she's done deceased paternity testing cases where the gentleman is deceased and he's in the morgue, and she has to take samples from his body, and the mortician guy's like, all right, you got it, you good, and he just leaves her in the room by herself at night. Oh, she's seen everything. She's seen everything. So she is an encyclopedia of knowledge for me. Every time I have a question, I will call her.
Got it. Get mom on the show. That's what I heard.
Take notes of that one. Yeah, she got stories. She got stories for years. So.
That is huge. So we have a question from one of our VIP sponsors of the show, Miss Nikki Brown. She asked the question. So she wants to know, from taking the course to starting a business, from A to Z, how long is the total process?
Yeah, that depends on how fast you work on it. So some of those things are based upon you. I've seen my students who do well, they take about 2-3 weeks to get started. And that is from taking the course, watching the 2 hours of content, asking questions in the Slack channels, getting their LLC, getting their website, getting their, Google Voice or whatever, getting on Google My Business. Google My Business actually takes the longest. Getting on Google My Business is very temperamental. And then getting at least a partnership with at least one laboratory. Okay. That takes about 2 to 3 weeks total to start. That's going to cost you at most $500, like I said, based on your state's incorporation fees. That's that. But yeah, from starting to at least from getting the course to at least starting the business, like becoming an entity and having a contract with a laboratory, about 3 weeks ish, 2.5, 3 weeks ish.
Can you? I love that. I hope that answers your question, Miss Nikki Brown. That was a great question. And thank you for being a sponsor of the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We appreciate your sponsorship. It helps us find exciting guests like this one. Hey, Ashley, what's going on? So, Doctor, this is huge. I'm a passive investor. Some of my audience members are passive investors. They're doing multiple businesses, multiple things. Is there a way to offload or push out any of some of this work?
100%. Absolutely. Okay. It won't be a fully passive business until essentially you have outsourced pretty much everything. All right, then it'll be passive, but there is still some form of active business operation that you'll be doing. Now, yes, I have gotten to the point now. I've started this business in December 2020. At first, I answered all my calls. I pretty much did most of my paternity tests myself. Okay. It wasn't up until my wife moved in with me in September of last year, she started answering my calls. Okay. So that I kind of outsourced that process because I'm military. I work from 5 to 5. You know what it is, Marcus. I work from 5 to 5. All right. Not 9 to 5, 5 to 5. Okay.
Yep.
So yes, I'm at the point now where I have a virtual assistant and she answers pretty much 95% of my calls. All right. And she invoices and she coordinates, and I'm gonna get into this in a second. She coordinates with DNA collection facilities for me as well. Okay. I, in the past maybe 3 to 4 months, I myself have only done maybe 3 paternity tests, like in person, like me, myself. I outsource all that now across the country. Okay. So you can have your virtual assistant who can answer your calls. That takes a load off because most of your clients, I'd say about 99% of your clients, they're not just going to buy a paternity test off your website without ever calling you. They always want to talk to you first. They always want to talk because they feel like they're alone in the situation or they're embarrassed or they just need somebody to talk to or whatever. All right. So answering the phone is incredibly important. If you can outsource that process, that takes about 50% of your work away. And then let's just say you work a 9 to 5, you're working, and you can't go do a paternity test yourself. I have in the course, I showed you how to actually outsource your paternity test to different DNA collection facilities or individual DNA collectors, to where you could just say, hey, I have this client. This is the case number. This is their name. This is the time they want to be able to come in. Can you do it? How much are you going to charge me? Okay, great. I'm sending you over there. They do the collection for you. They already have the kits on hand. You don't have to send them no kits. They send in the kits to the lab for you. The lab receives it, sees the case number that's assigned to it. They assign it to your account. You're good to go. I have not seen any of my clients basically, except for like 3 or 4 or so in the past like three months. But I've, I don't know. I brought in multiple tens of thousands of dollars. So, yeah.
Ooh, spilling the tea on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Round of applause for Mr. Banks. This is huge. I love this. The beauty of this show is I get to take notes all the time and I get to learn as I grow. We have one more short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Support for Gentleman Style Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers you precision engineering tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off free worldwide shipping with the code GENTSTYLE at manscaped.com.
We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we have Mr. Banks spilling the tea on how you, me, we, us can get started with starting our own paternity testing business. And so this is huge. This is phenomenal, and it's a low startup cost. If you missed any of that, go back, check him out because he's absolutely spilling the tea on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Sir, you mentioned this. I could not let this go. I had to ask. What is a DNA collection agency? So there are people. What is this? People not paying you, or what? What is this for?
Yeah. So there's a difference between a DNA collector and a DNA agency or distributor. Okay, so it's a slight difference. A DNA collector is somebody who is signed up with the laboratory, and they are trained on how to collect DNA samples. Usually, if they're just a collector, they are waiting for somebody to call them, such as me or the lab itself, to say, we have a client in Seattle, Washington. And obviously, Royal, I'm not going to fly out to Seattle, Washington, do a paternity test. I'm going to call somebody like you that I found in an existing network, or I Googled you or something. And I'm going to say, hey, I have a client. Can you do this collection for me? And they'll say, yes. I say, how much do you charge? They'll say $30 per person. All right, cool, great. And I send my client to them, and they just collect. They're usually waiting for calls to come in. Usually, they're waiting for calls to come in. But a person like me, an agency owner or a corporate partner of a lab, distributor, reseller, it's all the same thing. Okay, I own the entire business. I can advertise my test. I can build my business as far as I want to. I can sell my business eventually one day if I want to. I can exit. I can do all types of stuff with it. I can outsource collections. So yeah, a collector is almost like, I guess, if you have a drug testing business and you just have the person that goes and collects the samples, and then you have the actual drug testing agency or the actual business that can, outsource that or hire collectors or etc. So yeah, that's the difference.
Is there an opportunity for partnership between contractors, like between you and I have a paternity testing business in Seattle. You're in El Paso, Texas. Hey, Marcus, I found your website, brother. I need your help. Can you do this for me? How much do you charge? Is it the same thing? Same process?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a collector is not an agency owner, but an agency owner can also be a collector. You see what I'm saying? Because I have done collections for other DNA agents. The dude out in New Mexico, hey man, I got a client in El Paso. Can you do it? Yeah, sure. How much do you charge? $50 per. I charge $50 per person. I offer premium services. All right, that's me. All right, cool, great. Swabbed them, did it, and I didn't have to release the results. Excuse me, because I'm the collector. I had a client who was military out in El Paso who needed to get a paternity test. A lab in Germany, the court in Germany told him, yo, you need, because he's military, right? You got a kid somewhere in Germany, right?
Oh my gosh, track them down.
Yeah. Hey, you need to get a paternity test, big dog. So the lab in Germany contacts me. They're like, hey, can you do this collection for us? Because they're not going to send somebody from Germany to El Paso to do a paternity test. So they contact me because they found me, right? Well, he found me and then he contacted them. So I was like, yeah, sure. And I charged them, I don't know how much I charged them, like $190 something to collect for them. And they paid me through Stripe. So I got an international collection. So yeah, yes, I can. And even amongst my students in Paternity University, they have actually hit each other up across the country. I was like, hey, can you do this collection for me? Yep. Boom, 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 boom. Everybody works with each other. So yeah.
Perfect. This is huge. So this is several layers of income. This isn't just a one and done type of thing. This is huge.
Yeah.
So you can and my favorite part is you can offload some of this stuff to third party agencies, so you don't have to do all the work. Maybe in the beginning, and that's okay when in the grow up phase, because you're also learning the business.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get settled, once you get it down, once you sign up for your course, and is there a follow-up process with you? Is there a opportunity to continuing education? That's what I was looking for.
Within my course, absolutely. Within my course right now, I offer for both the lifetime access and the subscription. You can also get one-on-one consultations with me every single month. So I have a calendar that I send you out, a Calendly. You just book with me. Just like this, I will talk to you one-on-one on Zoom, whatever problems that you're having, whatever issues that you're facing, I will help you through it, or at least give you the guidance, the best possible guidance that I can. I won't give like legal or tax advice because I'm not a lawyer or a CPA, but I give you advice on it. Now, one thing, Marcus, that you brought up, which is really good, was different essentially sources of income within this business. Now, within the DNA business itself, there are multiple different types of tests that you can do. And each one you can charge a different fee. All right. So there are at least 8 different sources of income within your DNA business. Okay. So you have the standard court admissible legal paternity test, right? That's alleged father and child and mother if she wants to test. Okay. That's that you can charge between the average going rate is between $300 and $500 that you can charge for that. Okay. And the lab will charge you between $90 and $130 or something like that. And you keep the spread. Okay. You have the informational, which is the non-legal, meaning the non-court admissible one. Okay. That you can charge between $200 and $250. If they want to come in person and do it and you do it yourself, you can charge $300 for that. All right. Generally. You have the non-invasive prenatal, which is extremely high demand. All right. You can charge between $1,400 and $1,800 for that. You have the grandparentage. If the alleged father is not around or deceased or doesn't want to test, you can test the grandparent. You can test the parents of the alleged father. Okay. The parents of the alleged father, the mother and the child. That's a relationship test. That's not a paternity test because the father isn't there. You can charge between $400 and $500 for that. You have the avuncular test, which is testing the aunt and uncle, so the sister or brother of the alleged father, if he ain't around, right? And the child, okay? I just did one of those last week. You can charge between $400 and $500 for that. You have the deceased test, which I talked about. You can do that as well, or you can outsource that if you don't want to do it yourself, all right? You have the immigration test. Now, you, as the DNA agency owner, you cannot do an immigration test. An immigration test is when somebody wants to bring in somebody from overseas. You have to go, there's like coordination with the U.S. embassies, wherever. They only want the U.S. government only wants the labs to do those, the actual AABB accredited laboratories to actually coordinate all that. Okay, but what the lab will do is give you a referral fee if you refer that client who asked you about it to them, and the client goes for it and pays for it. And then you have the siblingship test as well. That's another one. So that's testing the siblings if the father ain't there. All right. So those are the different sources of income within your business. And really, honestly, you can use the same kits for each one of those. It's the same kit except for the prenatal. You use the same kits. So really, it's just like, what do you need? And you qualify the lead based on that. What do you need? You need this? All right, that's $500. Or you need this? That's $200. And so there's different sources of income within that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love passive income. Love passive income. We have another question from Kimberly Sinclair. She's tuning in and she wants to ask a question. Just tuning in, how much is the startup cost?
Yeah, startup cost is on or around $500. That's the average from what I've seen from my students and myself. The biggest startup cost is going to be incorporating your business. So however, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, however you want to do it, is incorporating your business. I know in the state of Georgia, I think it's like $100 or something like that to create an LLC, like file it. California, I think it's about $300 or so. Texas is about $250, $300 or so. So that's going to be like the bulk of your startup cost is that. The labs don't charge you to send you the kits up front. They don't charge you that. They will send, I have a box of kits right behind me. They will send you a box of kits with the swabs and the envelopes and all that stuff in there. They'll send you that for free, but they'll charge you on the back end. So your startup cost is going to be on or around $500. If you go over 500, you're doing something extra, or I would dare say wrong. If you're spending $2,000-$3,000 to start a paternity testing business, it don't cost that much.
But there are gurus out there that will try and convince you otherwise. So I hope that answers your question, Ms. Sinclair. Great question. So this is huge. Have you done any celebrities? The Mari, the Jerry Springer, have you ever been called out there or flown out there and like, hey man?
I have not done any celebrities. My mom has. I won't say their names, obviously. I have not. My mom's in Atlanta. Go figure. My mom, oh, for sure. Absolutely. But I have not, no.
Super dope. Well, this is exciting, sir. Are there any questions that I should have asked that anything unique about this business that I missed? Because this is huge. What you're doing is kind of like it's breaking traditional norms, right? And what I mean by that, because my first job, one of my first jobs, I worked in an ice cream store because that industry is typically dominated by women. But my first job as a man was working at an ice cream store. So this is what I consider going against the grain and going against societal norms. I would never in a million years realize that a person, an individual, could start and own and operate a fully functional paternity testing business. Is there anything I missed?
I would say, I mean, not really anything that you missed. I'd say just a comment is, if you're looking to get into this business, people talk about saturation all the time. Even in different service-based businesses, plumbers, notaries, CPAs, whatever. Quite frankly, a lot of businesses they offer paternity testing as a secondary or tertiary service. It's not their primary thing that they do. Usually it's drug testing or something like that. So if you go ahead and start and you're doing your market research and you see you might be in a city where there's a bunch of other places that do paternity testing, I'll be honest, they're probably okay or not that great. Some are really good. Some are like okay with the customer service. Like I have clients all the time that call some other places and they're like, "Oh, well, you're the first person to answer the phone." It's as simple as that. Like, can you answer the phone? And then another thing to think of is, you have to have a form of emotional intelligence when you're operating this business, because you're dealing with people who are dealing with some of the worst moments of their lives. They feel as though they're betrayed or they betrayed somebody else, whatever, however you feel. Your job is to do the test, is to listen and do the paternity test. Your job is not to comment on their situation, give legal advice. Your job is to just do the test and get them the results as fast as possible and communicate with them. So what sets me apart, and I know I'm kind of like going off on a tangent a little bit, but
You're good. You're good.
What sets me apart and what will set you apart and what I teach in the course is communication through all steps of the process, okay? From the time that you swab them to literally the time that you go to FedEx and drop off the samples, text them or send them an email. I've dropped off your samples. Here is the tracking. All right. It has now arrived at the laboratory. The laboratory has received it. Testing has begun. You will receive your results in X amount of time. Pending any whatever that may happen, that's what's going to happen. I will let you know. Results are ready. Results are complete. I've got your final payment. Thank you. Or since you paid it off already, you're good to go. I'm going to release your results. Here's your results. Boom. Here's your results. Thank you. I appreciate it. This is an explanation of the results because the report can be kind of confusing. Based on this, the probability of paternity is 99.997%, meaning that you or he is the father. Thank you very much for using Assurance DNA. Please leave a Google review. That's what sets you apart right there, is communicating through every step. And that's why I started Great Helix, by the way. That's what it's for.
Smart.
Yeah.
You guys see the strategy? You guys see how he broke this down and really dissected this? So that's huge, and that's huge. So, and one of my biggest things is like we talked about, like you just shared, is like there is an opportunity to potentially get emotionally involved, and you got to kind of stay neutral throughout the whole process. You're not here to pass judgment. You're not saying, "Girl, I'm with you, man. That dude is the like." There's none of that. Like you can't get involved like that. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, big facts. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, that's essentially it. It's just and just sticking with it. Don't give up. Don't quit. I've had a few students that they'll kind of go into a rut, which is understandable. And then they'll come back and be like, I have one student, by the way. I have a student out there in the area. He knows who he is. If he's listening to it, he knows exactly who he is. And I'm just talking junk about him. He got it. He said, "Hey man, I kind of just gave up, man. I kind of just dropped the ball, bro. But guess what? I got like 40 something calls last month, and I didn't answer none of them. And I was like, bro, you tripping? You could have been helped a bunch of people and made a bunch of money." He's like, "I know, man. I'm sorry, bro. Don't apologize to me. You're the one that gave up. But it's okay. You can get back into it. You know what I'm saying? All you have to do is just answer the phones again, man, and then you can get back into it and start helping people. You go through ruts. It is what it is. I'm not gonna lie. There were moments. The first 3 months of my business, I made $300. Like that was it. And I'm like, man, I'm looking at all these mobile notaries and drug testing companies. I'm like, man, I could do that too. I could start that up. This paternity testing, this sucks, but you just persevere through it. And since then, I'm essentially about to hit 6 figures. You know what I'm saying, in this business. I'm very, very close to it. And I think that next year I'm projected to do 6 figures of revenue in 2023. So it's just literally just stick to it. Just keep going, man. Like, don't give up. That's all I got to say about that one.
I'm baffled right now because you just said a number that I was not expecting. I was expecting this because you do this passively. You do this part-time because you're still a military veteran. So thank you for
Yeah.
your service. We appreciate you. But
Thank you.
you just kind of broke through a barrier for me. $500 to now, how many years later making six figures?
I'd say about what, 8? It's been about 19 months or something like that. So not 2 years. It has not been 2 years yet. It has not been 2 years.
So I want that to sink in, y'all. 18 months, went $500 investment, starting your own paternity business. Now about to make six figures, close to it, in 18 months. That's game changing. We have another question from our audience. Go ahead, Miss Kimberly. Miss Kimberly Sinclair follows up. What is the turning point in your business?
That's such a good question. Oh my gosh, Kimberly, that's such a great question. It was multiple aspects that led to the turning point. It's 3 specifically. One was getting around other business owners that look like you. Somebody that look like you is fine, but basically, I went to a networking conference in Dallas. I'm way out in El Paso. El Paso's 8 hours away from Dallas, 9 hours away. Okay, I'm all by myself in my own little silo. I went to a networking conference of other Black entrepreneurs and was just around them, just around that energy. And I told them about my business, like, yo, that's dope, man. That's super dope. Like, just being around that energy helped me and reinvigorated me. Because I was like, damn, at that point, from December 2020 to July 2021, I've only made $3,000 total in my business at that point. But being around other people, that helped. Then the next month, my wife moved in with me. She had just completed her master's degree in Atlanta, and she moved in with me. And so she started answering my phones. So from September, when she started answering all my calls, and by the way, I swear, I think it helps so much. If you're a man and you own this business, I'm gonna be real with you, and you have a woman answering your calls, it disarms both sexes. I swear. I don't know what it is, but it disarms them. So my wife answering my calls, sounding so pleasant and sweet, listening to them, shot my sales up significantly. So, like I said, from December 2020 to July, August 2021, I made $3,000. From September 2021 to December 2021, I made like $20,000, like in the business, right, in revenue. Okay, because my wife was in. That was a turning point. Then I noticed that the third one, in November, December timeframe, 2021, I sold like 10 prenatal paternity tests in that month at like $1,500 a pop or something like that. Okay, in sales. All right. Then I realized, wait a minute, the demographic out here that I'm serving, they want this specific type of test. So I changed my marketing to more so adhere to the prenatal paternity testing. And that skyrocketed my business from there. So I essentially getting around other like-minded business people, outsourcing the phone calls essentially to my wife. And now I have a virtual assistant that does it now. My wife is back at work. And then knowing what my market wanted specifically and addressing it. Those were the turning points. And that all happened between July 2021 and December 2021. So I hope that answered your question, Kimberly.
That's huge. Woo-hoo! Round of applause. I hope that answered your question, Ms. Kimberly. This is phenomenal. Sir, how can people connect? How can my audience learn more? How can we continue to grow with you and stay connected to what you're doing?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm most active on Twitter. So Twitter at Royal Skigi. There you go. Right there. I saw that. That's dope. I'm most active on Twitter. YouTube, my YouTube page is Paternity University. You can follow that. I post videos, all the time, interviewing my own students, talking about paternity testing, business, etc. So you can go there as well. Probably about, 6 or 7 hours worth of content there. And then my actual course, paternityuniversity.com, is where you can go purchase the course and learn how to start your own paternity testing. So I have a subscription offer and I have a lifetime access offer as well. And I think for your folks here, I might do a special deal, man. I'm gonna create a quick little code or something like that. You go to the code, enter in Marcus Gentleman. I will take some money off of the lifetime access. All right, I'll lower that down. All right, there we go. stand by on that one. Give him about 5 minutes. I'll do that.
Love it. Look at that, dropping nuggets on the show. Bring that back up on the big screen. We got to get that out. So that's huge.
Yep.
So check him out, y'all, and give us some time. Only on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, you're gonna get a discount code and get access to this. In my opinion, an exclusive opportunity that you don't want to miss. We're in a time of a pandemic. We're in a time of recession, y'all. So this is groundbreaking. This is the move. This is the play. If there ever was a play to make. So check him out, y'all. Royal Banks, and get involved with what he's doing. Paternity Testing University for my audio listeners.
Absolutely.
Mr. Banks, thank you so much for taking time to be here. We appreciate you, brother. We love you. I want to say to you publicly, don't stop what you're doing. We need what you're doing. You're necessary, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And we need what you're doing as well, man. Sharing this information of all different types. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It is my absolute pleasure. Absolutely. And I gotta get Mom back on the show. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I love this. I love what we do. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for checking out this exclusive interview. This is power. I want to leave my audience like I always do. Take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast, your favorite gentleman, and Mr. Royal Banks, spilling the tea on Paternity University. Check him out. Love you guys. Bye.